Marcus Holbrook wiped the grease from his weathered hands as he stared at the wreckage that had torn through his scrapyard like a meteor from hell. The twisted metal hulk didn't belong to any aircraft he'd seen in his 40 years of fixing engines. And he'd fixed everything from crop dusters to military jets during his time in the service. The ship, if that's what it was, had crashed 3 days ago, carving a smoking trench through his collection of rusted car frames and discarded machinery. The military boys had come and gone, taking their readings and samples, muttering about unidentified materials and inconclusive origins. They'd left him with a stack of non-disclosure forms and strict orders to report anything unusual. But they hadn't noticed what Marcus had noticed. The craft's hull, twisted and scorched though it was, had a peculiar property. Every morning at sunrise, a section near what might have been the cockpit would emit a faint, pulsing glow. And that glow always pointed in the same direction toward the old oak tree at the edge of his property. Marcus had spent enough time around mysterious machines to know when something was trying to tell him something. On the fourth morning, armed with nothing but a shovel and the stubborn curiosity that had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count, Marcus began to dig where the ship pointed. The soil was harder than it should have been, almost crystalline in places, as if something had fundamentally altered its composition. 3 feet down, his shovel struck something that definitely wasn't bedrock. The object he unearthed defied every law of physics he understood. It was a perfect sphere, about the size of a basketball, made of what appeared to be liquid mercury that somehow maintained its shape. When he touched it, the surface rippled like water, but remained solid beneath his calloused fingers. The moment his skin made contact, the world exploded into impossible colors and sensations. Images flooded his mind-vast cities of crystal and light, beings of pure energy dancing between the stars, technologies that bent reality itself to their will. And then, darker visions, fleets of geometric ships blotting out suns, worlds consumed by spreading darkness, civilizations snuffed out like candles in a hurricane. The devourers were coming. Marcus staggered backward, gasping, but the visions continued. He saw the crashed ship's pilot, a being of translucent blue light, contained within a humanoid form, desperately trying to warn anyone who would listen. The sphere was a data core, a repository of knowledge from a civilization that had fought the devourers for millennia before finally falling. But in their final moments, they had done something unprecedented. They had scattered warning beacons across the galaxy, hoping that younger species might succeed where they had failed. The key to defeating the devourers lay not in superior technology or ancient wisdom, but in something far more fundamental, something that made humans unique among all the species in the galaxy. Humanity's capacity for stubborn, illogical hope. The dying civilization had studied thousands of species, mapping their psychological profiles and technological capabilities. Most followed predictable patterns when faced with extinction. They either fought with logical precision until overwhelmed, or they accepted their fate with philosophical resignation. Humans were different. Humans looked at impossible odds and said, "Watch me." Marcus understood now why the beacon had crashed in his scrapyard of all places. The pilot hadn't been trying to reach governments or scientists or military leaders. It had been looking for exactly what it found: a stubborn old mechanic who saw a broken machine and immediately started thinking about how to fix it. The sphere pulsed again, and Marcus felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settle on his shoulders. Like a familiar tool belt, the Devourer's advanced fleet would reach Earth in 18 months. Humanity had that long to prepare, to unite, to do what dozens of more advanced civilizations had failed to accomplish. But as Marcus looked at the crashed ship, then at the sphere, then at his scrapyard full of discarded machines that he'd spent decades bringing back to life, he felt something that the dying civilization's computer models couldn't have predicted. He felt excited. "All right, you cosmic sons of bitches," Marcus muttered, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see what this old mechanic can teach you about not knowing when to quit." He had work to do. 18 months to jury-rig humanity's survival using nothing but scrap metal, stubbornness, and the kind of impossible thinking that turned junk into miracles. The sphere had shown him the Devourer's weaknesses. They couldn't comprehend species that refused to follow logical patterns, that turned desperation into innovation and fear into determination. Marcus Holbrook, career mechanic and chronic fixer of impossible things, smiled as he headed back to his workshop. He had 18 months to turn Earth into the galaxy's most dangerous junkyard surprise. The Devourers were about to learn what happened when you messed with a species that looked at the word impossible and treated it as a suggestion.